What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Bull Season 6, Episode 19, opening up. Whew, this was rough. There was so much that I did not like about this episode. It was a rough one to get through. And some of it was the topics being discussed are not ones that I'm particularly fond of, but also some of it was supposed to be funny, I think, and it was not funny at all. So we'll talk about that part first, because yeah, Bull with the back injury, I'm assuming there's supposed to be comedy there, but I wasn't laughing. I don't think I laughed once. It was weird. I don't understand why they did it. I don't understand. I guess maybe they just wanted to have a funny episode as they're gearing up for the end of the series, and we'll just throw this random, you know what, Bull has back pain. Let's see what the team's like without him. I don't know. It just seemed odd. Like, none of what Michael Weatherly was doing was that funny to me. I wasn't laughing. I wasn't even smiling. I wasn't giggling. Like, nothing was coming from any of those scenes. It was just him sitting there groaning in pain and then getting on the muscle relaxers and acting all dopey, and none of it worked for me. So yeah, I don't understand why they decided to do that story with him, why they decided to bench him this episode, but it ultimately didn't mean anything, and again, none of it worked for me. And the stuff with, we see what happens with Danny, I mean, not much there either. It feels more like they're just setting up a romantic interest for her by the end of the series rather than something deeper, which is disappointing considering, yeah, she just went through a life-altering event. She nearly got shot. That's crazy. And yet we turn it into, oh, it's so she can meet this cute little bartender. Oh, yeah. We can't focus on the fact that she just survived when she shouldn't have. Like, that would have been so much more interesting to see. I mean, Taylor even said at one point when they were in the house looking through the security stuff, the whole, oh, I'm Danny, nothing bothers me. Like, that is something that she has put off for so long. Like, that idea that she doesn't get phased. So to see her rock to her core, to see her experience a basically near-death experience where she should have died, but the gun misfired, that's one of those moments that you can really explore on a deeper level and dig into what that means for a character like Danny that doesn't let things bother her. And instead, once, like I said, we're turning it into, ooh, cute little bartender. Ooh, she's going to get a man. Really? That's where we're going with this story? When it first happened, I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty interesting. What are they going to do with it? Nothing. They're going to introduce a guy from, I can't discern the difference between Australia and New Zealand. I know their accents are very similar, but I'm pretty sure it was one of those two, at least. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, so they introduced this guy. As soon as I heard the accent, too, I'm thinking, okay, so he's going to be a romantic interest for sure. Because I don't know much about guys' looks. Like, I don't know what makes a guy attractive to women. I do know for a fact, almost every woman, you hear an Australian accent, it's a pretty good chance you're going to be like, hello. So as soon as I heard the accent, I'm thinking, okay, so this is going to be a guy for Danny, for sure, right? And then they did it. And it blows my mind that you have such an interesting story that you waste because you just want to set Danny up. Like, that to me is embarrassing as a writing team. That is, you want to be writing for the CW. You want to be writing for the teenage soap opera where everything that matters is relationships. It doesn't matter about characters. It doesn't matter about developing, growing, getting these characters to a deeper level. What matters is, who are they going to end up with? Who's going to end up with who? Ooh. And very frustrated by it. And then the case in this episode, I mean, I'm glad that it didn't turn into a, here's why polygamy is okay. But at the same time, that was basically the focus of the episode, is this woman trying to defend their open relationship. And I'm not somebody who thinks that that's okay. I'm sorry if that offends you, if you're in an open relationship and you're like, oh, we're so happy. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's okay. I'm not going to stop people from doing it if that's what they want to do. But for me personally, I will never understand an open relationship. And most of the time when I hear about one in real life, it comes from one of two places. It comes from, one, somebody in the relationship is dissatisfied, and wants to explore other options, but they still do love their partner, but they're dissatisfied with something. And so in their minds, they're like, well, I'm going to see if somebody else can fill that void, but I want to make sure that I'm still with them. I don't want to have an affair. So I'm going to make sure it's okay with them first. And then the other one is you've got one person who's very confident in the relationship and one who's very insecure. And the person who's confident is thinking, well, they seem like they're not enjoying themselves, so maybe we can step out a little bit more. And person who's insecure is thinking, well, I can't say no or else I'm going to lose them. And that's kind of what it leads to. I don't think I've met one couple where it was open and they were both extremely happy. They both absolutely loved it. I've not met, there's probably one that exists out there. I've not met one, and I've not heard of one. So to try to make this, because the thing is, in the end, they showed that no, their open relationship was not a good thing. It was not something that they both wanted. It was something that she thought he wanted. He just sort of went along with it because he clearly had a lot of insecurities because of her power and status, and he wanted to be the man. And I don't know. To me, what it is one of those, we just want to show that men are intimidated, like all men are intimidated by powerful women. And I don't think that's true. I think there are some men who are, but I think what you need to find is a man who wants to be with a powerful woman, because there are those men out there that's what they want in a relationship. So I feel like whenever they show a story like this, it's like, oh, men just don't understand. Men are just intimidated by. No, not all men are. Some are. There are some men who want to be the man in the relationship, and they're going to end up with a woman who wants to be the woman, and that's perfectly fine. Those people fit together. But I don't know. It's just whenever they paint it in this light, it just makes it feel like the writers think this is how all men are. All men are just intimidated. I think that's kind of ridiculous that you're going to paint all men with one broad brush and act like that's okay. But no, I think ultimately, though, I'm glad that they didn't go with the idea that open relationships are all great and they're all fantastic. I don't think that's the case. I think most of them, this is what happens. There's somebody that's not happy, and I don't think all of them are going to end like this, but I do think in the end, most of them end up with some sort of fight and realizing that not both people were okay with it. One thought the other one was, and the other one probably pretended like it was, or maybe thought it was for a little while and then realized it's not what they want. But I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that people can't go do that. I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody who does it is awful. I just personally don't understand and will never understand why anybody would think that's a good idea. So the fact that was the main focus of this episode, I'm not even going to lie. I didn't tune out. Like, I still paid attention. I still know everything that happened. I've definitely had episodes before where I've completely tuned out and I could not tell you what happened in the episode. So it wasn't that. It did just feel like, though, I'm not going to connect to this episode. I'm not going to sit here and get emotionally invested. And that's kind of how I felt throughout most of it. I was annoyed by Bull's antics. I was annoyed by what they did with Danny. And then the main story was just kind of I'm not really connecting with this story. So yeah, all of it felt kind of dumb. I will say I did at one point, I don't remember when, I didn't suspect it right away, but there was a point. I think it was before the email came out, because as soon as the email from the other account that Kyla never used, as soon as that email came out, I knew for sure that the husband was actually the one doing this, that he's the one that set this whole thing up or somehow made it seem like she was pressuring him. But I had a suspicion before that the husband was involved somehow. And then as soon as the email came out, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, so the husband is the one setting this up because he wants to basically take over the business. I didn't know it was because he felt, emasculated or whatever, but yeah, it was just a very drab and boring episode because of that for me. So I'm disappointed. We're 3 episodes left for this final season of Bull, and I feel like there's not really much that can save it for me right now. I'm actively looking forward to the show coming to an end. I'm at that level now, and it's very rare that I feel that way. I felt that way about like Arrow and Supergirl because those were both very poorly written shows. Honestly, kind of feel that way about The Flash now at this point too. But I mean, just that's the type of show that you have to be, though, for me to want you to end. You have to be dull and drab and boring and stupidly written. And that's just where I am. So, that being said, though, that's it for this one. On to the next episode. I'll see you there. And now, episode 20, the envelope, please. So, here's part of the problem. First of all, you're doing a flashback episode. So, you would think, okay, so we're going to see a lot of scenes that we don't remember because they're from further back. Well, part of the problem is half of the flashbacks in this episode were from this season. I still remember this season. I still remember these scenes whenever he's talking about the time when Astrid got kidnapped. I remember these scenes, and they went on for so long. It wasn't just like we cut to a quick clips of that episode and we see, Bull talking to Izzy freaking out. We don't see little clips of it. We see the full scenes from beginning to end. And I'm just sitting here thinking, we're really doing this? Like, not only are we flashing back to an episode that was from this season, but we're flashing back and showing the full scene. A good minute of a scene. Why? Do you think we really lost focus that much to where we don't remember what happened earlier this season? Maybe some people. But especially nowadays, when most people will wait to watch something until it's streaming, most people don't watch it live anymore. So it's not like you're giving this episode to people who haven't seen the first episode since whenever it first aired, like over 6 or 7 months ago. Most people are seeing this flashback episode maybe a couple of days, depending on how fast you're binging the show, after they watch the first one. So those scenes are still going to be fresh in our minds. So there's that problem. Also, because of what happened with Freddy Gonzalez, you're not going to have any scenes with Benny on it. And he's a big part of the show, which means you're not going to see a lot of flashbacks to previous seasons. A lot of them. And that's a problem. And I get, I'm sure there are like royalties or whatever if you're showing flashbacks of a character that somebody played. So that may be part of the problem. If not, though, if you didn't have to pay him royalties, I don't understand why you wouldn't just show his character. I think most people are smart enough to know the actor and the character, two separate things. Like, I'm not a big fan of some actors. Doesn't mean I'm going to sit there and not watch the movies. Oh, I can't believe... Like, I don't look at a movie, look at the actor playing the character and go, I hate that character because of that actor. If they're doing a good job, I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to stop watching Bull because of what happened with Freddy Gonzalez. I'm not going to not go back and watch the previous episodes because he's in it. Like, that's, I don't know. It's kind of stupid. So if it's because they had to do royalties, that's fine. I understand that prospect. You don't want to have to pay him more to use his character, even if it's in flashbacks. But if that's not the case, if there was something in his contract where they could still use his character even though they kicked him off the show in flashbacks and stuff, I feel like, why not? Give us a little bit more of that. Give us some of that nostalgia for the previous seasons. But whatever the case, I mean, it didn't hit. It did not hit that I'm watching a flashback episode. It didn't feel like a true flashback episode where it felt like I was remembering the show fondly. It felt like I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm remembering this season, and I don't have fond memories of this season. I kind of hated this season, and yet you're showing me clips from this season. You see the problem here. I'm not going to enjoy this episode whenever you're reminding me of episodes that I was not a big fan of. The kidnapping episode, I didn't really like it because I thought they could have done more with it, and it ended very quickly. The whole thing with Bull's trial, thought they could have done more with it, but it ended very quickly. Like, there's so much that could have been done with these stories, and it wrapped up real fast. So, yeah, the flashbacks didn't work. The story itself, fairly straightforward. Nothing that I haven't seen before. You've got Bull going to see this guy after he blacked out. I wasn't really sure what it was going to be, but it looked like it was a check when he opened it. So I'm thinking, so it's probably money of some kind. I don't know why that would cause him to black out. And then finding out it was a lot of money. And he was worried about becoming his dad because of that money. I mean, that's fine. I get it. I understand what they're doing with it, that he's worried about becoming his father and all of that. But I feel like this would be more interesting if we got a lot of this information before. You know, I feel like maybe they did talk about his father in an earlier episode that I'm not remembering now, but this feels like a good season 1 or 2 type of story where Bull is struggling with the prospect of becoming his father and becoming a con man just like his father. This feels like a good early season type of story, not we're reaching the final episodes, 2 episodes away from the series ending, and now all of a sudden we're dealing with this deep emotional conflict where Bull is trying to struggle with the idea of becoming his father. We're in season 6 now. You know, this feels like a very early season type of story. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but because Bull is our main character of the show is named after him, this is something that I would expect to be explored a lot sooner. I feel like when you get later on in the seasons, when you get to season 6 or 7, it should not be about wrestling with your past as much as it should be we're trying to forge ahead for the future. Like, I'm not saying the past can't come into it at all, but this feels like we could have gotten this information a lot sooner. Even just the story with Jake, the fact that it happened in the last season, that's another story that feels like, no, we should have known about this a lot sooner. So a lot of this just felt, like I said, it felt unnecessary. It felt like this should have been outed sooner. This whole story of Bull worrying about becoming his dad, all of this, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like this is the type of story that I want to see 3 episodes before the show ends. And then on top of that, the very cliche thing where he's going to see an old mentor, and then all of a sudden he realizes he's been talking to himself the whole time and his mentor is actually dead. I mean, I had I wouldn't say I had a suspicion. I knew something was up with him. I knew it was more than just he's been keeping an eye on him, because they were doing a lot of those scenes where it's like, wait, you said you hadn't kept up with me and yet you know about this? He's like, oh, you know, I forget stuff. I knew there was something weird. I wasn't exactly sure what, but then as soon as the girls walked up, hey, are you okay? I'm like, oh, he's sitting by himself now, isn't he? Yeah, okay. So that's what we're doing with all of this. So yeah, I mean, it was something that I wasn't really expecting for most of the episode, but it's still a story that I've seen before. So it's not anything that I was like, oh, what? He wasn't even there? Oh my gosh, you blew my mind. Like, it's not really that interesting. It doesn't add anything to the story, really. Because at the end of the episode, what happens? Bull realizes that he's worried that this money is going to turn him into his dad. Well, okay then. Could he figure that out on his own? He did figure that out on his own. So why do we have to have this thing where he's hallucinating being with his mentor? I don't know. It felt unnecessary to me. And it felt like something where the writers, they've seen this type of story, or they've seen this type of twist done before. They're like, oh, that's really clever. We're going to do our own take on it. And people are going to think we're clever. And we don't. At least I don't. Maybe some people did. Some people turned off their brains and they were just totally caught off guard and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. I was not at all caught off guard by this, because it's a story I've seen before, and it didn't add anything to the story, knowing that he was actually hallucinating his mentor. So again, it kind of gives more credence to my idea that this whole season was written by AI, because this feels like a story that AI would just produce based on, if you program all of these past stories into its database, it'd be like, here's a story that nobody's ever seen before. It's like, no, they have. We've all seen the story before, more than likely. So yeah, I mean, all in all, it's 2 very bland episodes. I hope they have something for the final 2. I hope they have. I'm hoping, first of all, that it's not just going to be one more episodic story and then one final episodic story to finish it off. I hope there is actually a story for these final 2 episodes that are going to connect together and really bring this show to a satisfying conclusion. But I don't see it. This final season has not been that good. It's been really frustrating at times. So I'm not at all going into this final 2 episodes excited. I feel like I'm going to go in and get more crap. So with all that being said, that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 2 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Bull reviews. And until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.